What's up, folks? Welcome to another episode with us here, Log Talk with Pert Near Outdoors. This is your host, Billy. I'm recording this midday, Sunday the 17th, and if you're listening to this, you already know that the Buffalo Bills are on to the AFC Championship. All of Buffalo, all of Bills Mafia, Bills Nation, however you want to associate yourself, is just fired up. I've been listening to post-game for about 6 hours now today. It's after 1 o'clock. I've been listening since I woke up this morning, and I just can't get enough of this. So if you're a Bills fan, if you live in this region, especially us young folks that never had the we may have been alive for the Super Bowl runs, but we always just heard the stories and never really quite knew what this was all about. And I'll tell you what, it's surreal. It's exciting. This generation has been waiting for this for a long time, and to be able to share it with our parents, our grandparents, our friends, people we've gotten to know over the years, it's just incredible. And sitting back and watching that game last night from home, as I spoke about last week, Danny and I were fortunate enough to be there and to be in the stands for that game, and it just makes me so proud to have our fan base get the respect that they do, our team get the respect that they do, and to listen to that crowd last night. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm a season ticket holder. Maybe it's because I go to the games, but it makes me so incredibly proud to watch that, to listen to that energy in that stadium for only 6,700 people, and that's total. That's not everybody. So the 60, let's just say it's 6,500 people that are in that stadium in the seats making that kind of noise. I can attest for what it was last weekend. It's amazing. The energy is incredible, and it couldn't come at a better time for everybody here that really needs something to focus on that's not full of drama or full of opinion. It's like we can all get behind this team and get behind this community, and it's just freaking exciting. So I love it. I hope I have a couple more weeks of podcast intros where I can talk about this. And maybe we'll even get a little Super Bowl action. That's what I'm hoping for. Bring on whoever it is next week. And I do want to give a shout out to Trent Murphy. So Trent, I know I've talked about him on here. I feel like I know Trent because he's a Bills player, obviously, but because he's a hunter and outdoorsman, and we've messaged a little bit back and forth on social media. I hope to someday get him on here, hopefully after maybe he's got a big old ring on his finger. But last week, Trent did a pretty cool thing. You may have seen on social media, I don't know what it was last Wednesday or last Tuesday, he ran a charity fundraiser for the Venison Donation Coalition, and I don't know what the final numbers are of how much he raised with it, but he gave away 2 tickets to the game, and I know first thing in the morning, I had messaged with him on Instagram pretty early. It was probably mid-morning, 9 o'clock-ish. He said that they already had $4,000 in the account, and it only been out there for a few hours. So really awesome what he's doing there for the local community. And, this is a hunting podcast. I'm talking about sports, but for a guy like him, you don't often hear pro athletes or people out in the public eye that are actually engaging with the community in this sort of way. You hear about these players are doing all kinds of stuff, but Trent is clearly a country boy, and he's helping in a very unique way in our community and in our not only the community of Western New York and Buffalo, but he's impacting all of New York State and people that are in need of good protein and good food. And the Venison Donation Coalition, I know I've had them on the podcast, and had Greg First on, and we talked about the program, but it's something we've gotten involved with as well, and couldn't be a better cause, couldn't be something that I'm more proud to be part of, and to see what Trent's doing there. It's with his platform, it's freaking awesome. So good on you, Trent. I couldn't have been happier to see you make some big plays last night and see you on the field. It's good stuff. So congratulations to you, sir, and thanks for what you're doing for the community. Speaking of community, one of the things I've been listening to some podcasts this week, and it seems like, and I kind of remember back to right after the first of the year last year, none of us had any idea what was coming down the pipe with the pandemic and all that, and especially the new hunters coming into our community that is such a passionate community of outdoorsmen, hunters, fishermen, and alike, all that sort of stuff. And we've had I think there was a little bit of talk about this last year about everybody trying to, get on the boat and support each other, make sure we're policing our own, doing the right things. And what I mean by that is just we all, especially nowadays with social media and everything that's going on with the cancel culture and the negativity, everything that surrounds that, we all got to be very cognizant of what we're doing, what we're putting out there, how we're presenting ourselves, because when we present ourselves as hunters, I'll just speak for hunting in particular because that seems to be what triggers the most, whether it be on the anti-hunting side or people that just don't understand what it is that we do. We really need to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward, that the pictures we take, the way we interact, the way we present ourselves in public, just out and about, think about that and think about what image people have of us as we are out there doing those things, because everybody knows the stereotypical redneck, but I know I know a lot of stereotypical rednecks that are some of the greatest people on this earth. But from afar, people might look at that and say, I don't, that person's disgusting. He's a savage. I don't get that. They shouldn't be allowed to go out and do the things that they do. Just keep that stuff in the back of your mind. I think as we roll into this year, that's something that as I was getting going with this point, is that there's been several podcasts I listened to, one of them being the Deer Hunter podcast with Kevin Vistison. His most recent episode was talking about this, especially on the social media front. But Kafaru Cast also had a long, 4-hour discussion about all kinds of stuff, but they got on this topic as well. And I really think it's important as we move into 2021 that all of us people that are involved in the outdoors, regardless of what it is that you do, try to not pass too much judgment. Try to not poke holes in the boat and cause problems and infighting amongst us, because in the big picture, we're a very small group of people in this country. We might feel like there's a ton of us, but it's because we're in a little echo chamber. So just think about that, and keep an eye out for people that are doing the wrong things, and maybe don't attack them on a page, but maybe message them personally or try to reach out to them and convey what they're doing might be hurting us in the long run. So I hope that makes some sense. I'm sure we'll have some more discussion about this. It's kind of weird me just talking alone about it, but I think it's something that's very important for everybody to keep in the back of their minds, and when we're interacting and when we're just doing what we do in this world we live in nowadays. So that's enough of me on that. I'm very excited for this episode. So this is kind of roll into what this is going to be about, and then we'll get the conversation started. This episode is with Ralph Scherder from Pennsylvania. Ralph is an outdoor writer, so pretty cool that we connected with him the way we did. But this is going to be the story of Trigger's big 12-point, his 150-inch 12-point that he shot down in PA in rifle season. So we've kind of been sandbagging on this story a little bit, only because we wanted to be able to get, ideally the three of us wanted to get together, but with everything going on with the virus, it's just easier to do it via Zoom. So we all live within a mile and a half of each other, but it just seemed easier just to sit in front of our computers. So we dialed up Ralph, got him on the Zoom, and we all sat down and got to hear the backstory. So I don't want to give too much info, but Ralph had a fair amount of experience with this buck, and we connected with him through social media with the pictures of Brian's deer, and started exchanging work that he had done. He's written articles on this deer, has hundreds of pictures of him, and really, really cool part of the story. And it means a lot to me to be part of this in the way of I don't often get to see Brian or Dallas show any emotion at all, because they're both manly men. But it was pretty cool to see and hear the two of them sharing the emotion that they had, and that moment that they had together killing this buck. It could be Brian's buck of a lifetime. You don't know how many times you're going to get a chance to shoot a 150-inch buck. So really cool to hear this, and I hope you all enjoy the discussion. And the camaraderie is what it's all about, and I think it ties back into the community piece I was talking about right before this, that Ralph could very easily have not said anything. He very easily could have not engaged with us, or could have negatively engaged with us, but he was quite the sportsman about it, and was very actually excited to see come to meet his maker, and to a willing opponent of the Trigger, and the Dallas. So good stuff there. Enjoy the discussion. I hope you're liking the content we're putting out. Give us some feedback. We're going to start doing some more stuff here as we move forward. I got a long list of people I want to talk to, and look forward to putting out some more content for you. So thank you, everybody, for listening. Have a great week. Keep feeding them, and go Bills. Yeah. Hello. Yeah, that's your name.
Squirrels got me.
Big Jim.
Yeah.
Really, 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 really cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
That's good that you think that of it, because that's what deer hunting typically is cold and fun.
Yesterday morning, I'm glassing up on the pass, and I see these deer moving, and I'm like, ooh, there's deer moving. All of a sudden, I just see this person just head down, just hauling ass, wearing shorts and a t-shirt with a pack on. And I'm like, is that Tard? My dad always talks about floating through the woods like the autumn breeze.
So Robert's
when you're
the
275 pounds, I don't know how you do that, but
the Freightliner. It's just like a creeper. You're just kind of up in the corner watching what's going on down there.
yeah,
You know,
he's like,
he's up there slapping, pissing all over everything.
is it warm yet?
How did you know the name of the actor?
That's right. I know.
Why did you say his name?
Hervé Villagers.
You know what pert near means.
If you know what pert near means and you live in America, you're a redneck too.
Welcome to the Log Talk Podcast, brought to you by Pert Near Outdoors.
Yeehaw!
Hi, Dallas.
What's up, brother?
Hey, Billy,
What's up?
how's it going?
Good. Brian, are you not going to show us your face or what?
I don't know. What do I gotta do?
Are you on your cell phone, right?
Yeah.
So you should probably should be some sort of a option.
Oh, I got it.
Okay.
Start video.
Nice. There you go. Oh, you got a Ford in the shop.
Well,
Surprise, surprise.
do we need to watch some Amiri King movies? Their videos?
Yeah, could we? All right, so I'll introduce. We have names on our video, so everybody kind of figures out who's who. But Ralph, how do you say your last name so I don't butcher it?
Yeah, it's Schurter.
Schurter. So
Yes.
Ralph Scherder, welcome to the podcast. And as you can see, we got Dallas and Brian. Both are the dynamic duo, the brothers that put an end to a buck that we're going to talk about today. So welcome to the podcast, and thanks for connecting with us via the social media, that world of Facebook. So this discussion is going to be based around a buck that Trigger shot. So Brian, everybody that has been following along with us over the last month saw that Brian shot an awesome buck back in on our trip to PA, and a week after we posted a picture up and had a bunch of good responses, and then all of a sudden had Ralph here post up a picture of the buck that Brian shot. So we ended up having an awesome dialogue back and forth on there, and found out that there's quite a history behind this deer. So we've been wanting to find the time, and finally found some, so the four of us could get together and have a chat about this deer, about the history of the deer from your perspective, and then kind of wrap up the story with Brian and Dallas telling how it all went down. So my thoughts here is that I kind of sit back because I didn't have a whole lot of anything to do with it, other than the fact that I was in the same woods at the same time, and let you guys kind of tell the story. So first, before we get into the actual deer story, I guess we don't really know anything about you, Ralph. So kind of introduce yourself, where you're from, and it seems like you do quite a bit of writing. Maybe you do that for a living. So I'm kind of interested in, I think we're all interested in what you're up to and who you are.
Oh, well, thanks. It's really good to be on your podcast. Thanks for inviting me. And yeah, I'm an outdoor writer and photographer.
I do this full time.
Nice.
I have my own publishing company called First Fork Publications. And on that website, I do the Big Woods blog. I have a camp up in Potter County, only about 10 minutes from where you shot the buck.
Nice.
So I've been hunting up there for a long, long time, and fishing. The roots go back in my family to the 30s and 40s up in Potter County there. And
cool.
I live in Butler, which is about an hour north of Pittsburgh. And it's all, ag land around here, a lot of privately owned, some game lands, but, a lot of nice buck around here. And this is where I kind of, grew up, after school, heading out into the woods, into the farm country. And I killed a lot of nice bucks here. But, the big woods is, once you start hunting in Potter County, you don't really want to go anywhere else, And it's to the point where the past, 5-6 years, I literally have not hunted anywhere else in Pennsylvania. Guys will show me pictures around home of bucks and all, and I'd rather go to the mountains. Put my time in and due diligence and, earn it. So, but this is what I've been doing. My work appears in, a lot of magazines every month, everything from Bowhunter to bowhunting.com to, I've been in Sports and Field, for fishing game, all the major ones. And
that's awesome. Did you go to school? Did you go to school for that? Is that something that you were always aspiring to do?
I sold my first professional, national sale when I was still in high school. But I did go to college for it. And, whether it helped or not, I don't know, but it couldn't have hurt.
Right.
But it was just something that I think you do by, you write, you go hunting and fishing and you get the stories. And if you're passionate about it, you write about it. And if you take good photos and have a good story to tell, it just kind of leads you on its own path.
No doubt.
But I love what I do and wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. So that, number one, that's cool to connect with you and somebody who does this stuff for a living. I find that stuff fascinating, and it's certainly not, you got to do a lot of work to earn your keep. So I'm sure I can't fathom it. This here is just a hobby for us doing the podcast and the whole social media Pert Nears outdoor thing. But you're actually making a living doing this. This is, it's awesome. I give you a lot of credit for it.
I always, I've always looked for an excuse to go hunting and fishing, but now, I tell people it's my research. And that sounds a lot more important.
Sure. Yeah.
But I can't stay home. I got to research a story.
Yeah.
Right. Honey, I got it.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. It has worked to an extent, but sometimes I've been known to push it a little bit, But
we all have. Yeah.
You have to, right?
Yeah.
For sure. So I guess a caveat as we start to discuss areas and hunting and stuff, Brian and Dallas and I talked prior to this, and if we get into saying names of roads or, areas particular, if anything that's gives away the four of us know where these things happen, I'll just edit those pieces and those names and words, whatever, so that kind of make it a little bit challenging for people to figure out exactly where we are. But for the four of us, I think it'd be interesting if we are talking locations and things like that, being the history you have with this deer. It would help put the story together. And I know for us, and I guess Dallas or Brian, you guys can speak to this, but for us, we're really interested in like what the backstory is of this buck, because all we know is what Brian and Dallas stumbled into, and we don't know where this deer lived, the history of him. And that part of the story is fascinating to us. So I guess before we get into that, Brian or Dallas, do you guys have anything to add there?
Yeah, we only saw him once, so we're interested to see, I guess it's interesting that with the big woods, where these deer move around, where they live, how far they go, there's just, we've been hunting Potter County for a long time, but we only hunt there 3 days a year, basically, 3-4 days a year. So we don't get a lot of backstory on what's going on there. We just go down and hunt, and we have success or we don't, but we always drive out of there going, well, that was cool. I wonder, it's like, you don't really know a lot about it, which is, it's fun for us, but you kind of would like to know a little bit more what's going on there,
my biggest thing is I want to know how far they go from summer range to end of October, when they're rutting, and what's happening in December when we come. We hunt usually the last 3 days of gun season, and that's all we see. We just go down there, we hope there's snow, we come up with some plans and see what happens. So that's what I really want to know. I mean, we wonder the same about deer around here in the farmland. We have no idea how far they go. We get pictures for a week, then we don't for a week, then we do again. Did they just go 100 yards, or I think we're coming to find out that they go a lot further, even when you don't think they need to or should. So that's
this,
what I'm looking for.
The area where you guys actually killed this buck, was that your first time ever in that spot, or had you driven out that in the past or hunted that in the past?
Yeah,
we hunt that spot every year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you always done pretty good there in that spot?
Yeah. We've killed that hollow is we've probably killed 5 or 6 bucks in there in the last 10 years.
And 4 good ones, 5 good ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Actually, I mean, it just depends what you call that. That area is a couple square miles. So.
Right.
If you think about if you're hunting the big creek or all the couple draws that feed it, if you think about the couple draws that feed it, I mean, you've gotten quite a few good bucks.
That creek that bends around down to the east, we don't hunt down to the east as much as we do north, like up a couple of ridges, but we've had some good luck up that way too. So kind of like starting from the spot where that deer was jumped up to the north about a mile or so, that area has definitely been good to us. Yeah, we've hunted that over the years for sure. Every year we get in there at least once.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it's I found that area just about 2 years ago. It's funny how I found it. I was working on a book called Hunting Mountain Whitetails, and I published that book last summer, and it's available on my website. But so one of the chapters in the book was talking about how to locate big bucks in the big woods, because everyone wants to know, how do you find them in order to hunt them.
Yeah.
And some of the things I talked about, as far as like how terrain and habitat all meet together, I wanted to use an example. So basically I picked like 4 spots on a map that I'd never been into. I just looked at, I checked, 3 different versions of maps, topographical, aerial, I was on Google Earth, anywhere. And I thought, okay, that looks good. And basically threw a dart and went in and hung a camera. And where that fence is, the deer exclosure.
Okay? Well, let's just like to get a spot to make sure we're all talking the same spot.
Right. That's what I'm wondering, if we're even positive we're on the same draw or.
So what would be the
area?
What would be that 4 corners there?
Okay.
What 2
where
roads is that?
Go ahead.
It's
Dale knows the area the best. I mean,
it comes together with 2 forestry roads, and there's gates on the forestry roads. I'm not sure, they don't have a name to them.
But it's the biggest parking spot, that we can find, I would imagine. I don't know what that. I guess that one isn't called anything. It's just a forestry.
But does that sounds familiar to you, Ralph? Like, I think it was last year they were actively, fracking in there. So there was a actual, like a guard station, not this year, but the year before. So we all on the same page.
There was a guard.
Okay.
Yeah, she was good looking. We were all after a few days of being alone up in the mountains. We were, just
she
kidding.
seemed
hon.
lonely.
I love you, hon. I would never.
So what you're actually calling, if you come up, which goes to the north and the south.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, so, it changes name.
Yeah.
Yes. And of cuts over the mountain,
Right.
and kind of the dividing line between the two. So
Yep.
where you guys were accessing, where you were going down to the first gate there, or were you going farther down to that fenced cut? There's a fence cut with pull-offs on each side of it.
So
before
that
you get to the guard station.
right. Yeah, I know you're talking.
Well-
and that's where we were parked when we took the pictures with the
You were
deer.
parked on the northern side
Yes.
of that exposure.
Yes.
Because I looked at that and I thought I was just parked on the other side of that.
Well, yeah,
when
okay.
you guys took that picture.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah,
what we
okay.
wanted to make sure that, because we weren't
Yeah.
sure that if you knew, because we posted the pictures of that a weekend later for
Mhm.
COVID reasons. We wanted to make sure everybody was clear before we started posting stuff. So
Right.
so we wanted to make sure that we were all talking the same thing. So we know exactly where
Yeah.
you're talking. Yep.
And so that's where you parked to walk down into the valley from there.
But we shot him
Correct.
to the west of there, not to the east. So if you're standing there on the road where that fenced off area is to the east,
It was the other side.
we were on the other side when he was shot.
Across the road
Yes.
from the fenced in cut.
Yes.
Okay. And like where did he actually come out of from there? He was down in the bottom, or
We'll get to that.
That's a,
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
right.
So
Anyways, it's
we-
an old fence that they took out below
Mhm.
where we on that side.
Yeah.
There is no fence anymore. How long has it
Okay.
been gone, Dallas?
2 or
Just
3 years.
yeah,
But
not
he's
long.
talking about
Yeah.
the fence up. Ralph's talking about the fence up by
Right.
the road where
Yeah.
we parked the truck.
Right where
Yeah,
we took the
that's-
pictures. Yep.
Mhm.
And that's not really where we were parked, but that's where everybody kind of met
Okay.
waiting for us.
Yep.
Me and Dallas packed that deer out. So everybody was just kind of drinking beer waiting for us,
Cool.
trying
Very
to kill,
good.
you know.
All right, so
Yeah.
take us back to the beginning of your journey, Ralph, because now we're all in the same spot. We know we're talking.
Okay, so I got back in there where there was a nice ridge. That fence cut there is gigantic. It's actually two fences with a
Yeah.
little narrow gap
Yeah.
between it. But
Yeah, you can actually walk through it.
yeah, yep. So if you went through that opening, say, and you followed the fence around to the right, and you followed that all the way out to a corner, you'll see there's like a ridge. It's a little bit of a low gap, tons of oak. There's a big mound, like a high point right there. It's all full of oak. I hung a camera right there at the corner of the fence, and within a day, got a picture of a nice 11 point. I'm talking like, it was 150s. This was in.
Yeah, a PA 11 pointer or like a real 11?
No. There was one of those too. Yeah. Although in PA we call them West Virginia 11 pointers.
Okay,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
you keep going one
We
state.
call them Pencil
Exactly.
Tucky and 11 pointers.
Okay, yeah, there you go. But so it was a really huge deer. This was 2019. So I got the picture of that. I moved. I figured out, he was probably coming from down the bottom. Put a couple cameras up down there, and checked those a week later, and there were 2 11 points on there, and they were both together, and they ran together 2 months, 3 months, from July, August, September, clear into mid-October. And I was getting pictures of them even in the daytime, middle of the day in mid-October. It was a time I could only hunt weekends. So of course, they were moving through the middle of the week and on Sundays. And, but they were very photogenic, very daytime oriented. The smaller 11 point is the one that became the 12 point that you shot. So the DCNR, in all its wisdom, decided that mid-October was the perfect time to do maintenance on the forest down in there. And they took a bulldozer and basically leveled his bedding area.
Oh.
I mean, completely leveled it. All right. I had 100 photos of their bulldozer coming in and out, guys tromping all around. So, and I had pictures of the deer actually bedding in these weeds both 11 pointers, and this was just like a buck magnet, this spot, because it was real wet. It was a wet hollow, had a lot of greens. There were a scattering of oak. There was some pine through it. It was like everything a deer ever wanted was right there. So once the DCNR came in and leveled that, they just disappeared for a while. And I didn't really see anything. I had cameras all around. Couldn't get a photo of either one of them anywhere. And the bigger 11 point that year was probably like a 6-year-old. He was just biggest body I ever seen in my life on a deer. But I went in on the Sunday of rifle season. Rifle season came in on a Saturday. I had already tagged out on a nice 9 point, different area. I was walking in. My sister was going to come up. She lives in West Virginia. She was going to hunt. So I was walking in there looking for a spot for her. And there was the big 11 point just standing down in that hollow. And he ran off. And I don't even know what happened to him. He was around her. He might show up again some year. I don't know. Sometimes the really big ones, they don't always hang around in the same spots every year, it seems. Once they get to a certain age, they become so reclusive, and they can get into those cuts and just never move. But so anyway, I don't know what happened to them the rest of the year. And then last year, July 2020, I set up a camera down in there again. That's when I started getting photos of this 12 point. And he was back bedding in the same area that had been bulldozed the year before. So, he was hanging around there consistently. I was getting him on camera 4 or 5 times a week, coming out of this spot. And it was like clockwork. It was, then it came to last week of September, the week before archery season comes in. And once again, the DCNR and all their wisdom comes in with the bulldozer. And I think what they were doing, they were kind of leveling some of the roads where they had, because this was a selective cut. And they were kind of beveling things so that the runoff wouldn't erode the ground, But last year being kind of a drought year, that hollow was usually really wet with a lot of nice lush greens and stuff. The deer just weren't in there quite the same way. So once the DCNR came in and did that, the deer were just gone. I kind of rearranged, cameras and all, moved down in deeper, and sure enough, all of a sudden started hitting them again, like almost, every other day. And it was like clockwork on this edge of the cut. And the last photo I had of him was the day before Halloween. It was October 30th, right, middle of the day. But there were a lot of people hunting him last year. Word got out. I had been up there, like I said, in rifle season scouting around in 2019. And there was talk around on the ridge, people I was talking to, they were saying, "Hey, did you hear about this big 12 point?" And I was like, "Well, he's actually only 11, but yeah, I heard."
Oh, so this is 2019 still.
Yes, yeah. So, but so by 2020, they were just, a lot of people were hunting them, and it was causing the deer to just kind of move deeper and deeper and deeper into the bottom.
So he was working further? Okay.
Yes. Yep. And so by the time, end of October came around, I mean, people were stealing trail cameras. They were swapping out SD cards. I went in to climb a stand that I had set up, and there was another guy 20 feet from it in his stand. And, it got to be pretty hardcore, and everybody you talk to is, nobody wants to say it, but everybody knows the same thing, kind of, But so the deer just disappeared, and I relocated him about 1.5 miles away, up on the side where I'm guessing you killed him. There were some monster rubs of like 10-inch diameter trees up in there, and I think that's where he was doing most of his rutting. And I think a lot of it had to do with the bear season, the early bear season with muzzleloader. They were really in there pushing out that for bear hard. And I had a lot of trail camera photos of hunters, moving through exactly where he was bedded, and I had bucks flying past the cameras, and it was just a fiasco. And it really just threw off the whole rut, the early part of the rut, in my opinion.
Yeah, that bear season is really troublesome for if you're in there trying to deer hunt. It's really bad timing.
It is.
And now they got the muzzleloader season on top of the regular season too. So.
Oh yeah, and the muzzleloader, they were pushing through there like crazy, But so I finally relocated them there about mile and a half away, and then I had a feeling though that once rifle season came, that he was going to end up right back in his honey hole. I set up a couple new cameras where I thought he was going to be coming back in. I hung a couple stands specifically for rifle season, thinking, this was going to happen. And the Monday before Thanksgiving, my wife got COVID.
Oh.
The next day, I tested positive for COVID. And my daughter tested positive for COVID. So we were wiped out. I didn't finish my quarantine until end of first week of rifle season on that Thursday. And that's when I was finally able to head to the mountains. And I checked my camera, and I have a picture of the 12 point coming into the one stand that I hung first morning of rifle season, right at daybreak. So, but that's the breaks, that's what happens. I think overall there were probably 2 or 3 areas where he was going to. He seemed to come to that bottom there, and he would stay for a couple days, and then he'd be gone for a couple days and come back. But putting it all together, he definitely had 2 distinct core areas, and they were about a mile to a mile and a half apart. And that made him really hard to get on.
So he's basically just using 2 adjacent, like, ravines or canyons, whatever you would call them.
Opposite side of that road. Yeah, both sides of that road.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ralph.
Oh, well, I kind of, how I put 2 and 2 together of where he was, the 2 areas, is that in the other area there were pictures of some bucks that I was getting, and when they started showing up where the 12 point had been, I started realizing that the 12 point was now where they had been. It was just complete fluke, and I went up there, and sure enough, there he was.
Yeah. So now that we know that you were talking about actually run as the main area where you're actually focusing on that deer, that's been our main focus area for about the last 5, 6, 7 years. And I think it was 2017, we got a shot at a big wide one down there on the bottom of the run on the last day. We chased him back all the way up towards Wild Boy in the snow, and we had it was just a flesh wound. We just had a drop of blood. If it wasn't for fresh snow, we'd never been able to follow him. But at that time I was running cameras down there and spending a little bit of time in there aside from just our 3-day rifle hunt. I would bow hunt occasionally down there, not much, not enough to really focus on it. But I had put together, between topo and aerial maps, I was trying to figure out where we could go after that deer the next year. And I had circled an area. It was both sides of that road that you're talking about. So it was over where we killed the 12 pointer and where you were chasing the 12. There was a circle there where the vegetation and the terrain and everything all came together. I had this area where I started spreading out a few cameras down in there. So this was the exact pattern that I was trying to put that buck on 3 years ago, is what you're saying that you found from this one this year. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to back up a little bit too, that in 19, the other 11 pointer that you had, was it a 10 with a flyer off the G2, one of the G2s?
No, it was a true 11 point. It was
okay.
It would have been on the right side. Just another point would have made it a 12.
All right, because Brian's got a story about another buck down there from 18.
Yeah. Oh, really? Cool.
Probably 160-inch buck. Yeah.
No kidding.
Mainframe 10 with he lift flyers off of both G2s.
Oh,
Kickers.
both. Okay.
Yeah, that was a
Yeah, so
12.
same.
That was a 12 also.
Okay. So same spot. So yeah.
40
But
yards,
this,
no tag.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Brian is screaming. He's yelling at the deer, and the deer. It's almost like the deer knew that Brian couldn't shoot him, and people with the tags were all below him. Brian was at the top, and we were all kind of sprinkled down the side hill, and Brian's just screaming, "Hey, oh my God, hey," screaming. And Brian doesn't, it's really hard to get him excited about the size of a deer. And he was just losing his business. It's super interesting to hear that from you. Like Dallas and I were talking earlier tonight, and like, we don't have a clue what goes on in there. Like 362 days out of the year, we have no idea. So like, when we see somebody, we like get really excited to talk to them and figure out what the hell's going on, because we have no idea.
Never wants to tell us anything.
Yeah, they're all like, "No, there's no deer in these woods."
Yeah.
Well, just driving around the roads.
Pack full of meat.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's true. There's never deer in Potter County anywhere.
No.
They're all
Everyone
over.
always
Nowhere.
They're all over in the Allegheny National Forest.
That's right.
County.
Go bother Steve Schurter over there.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Steve's a good friend of mine.
Steve's awesome, man. Don't go bother Steve, people. Please.
No, don't go bother Steve. But all the bad pub that Pennsylvania gets is just way overblown, and maybe it was true back in the day before the APRs. But I tell you, it is something. It is a great place to be. I think no matter where you go in these big woods down in Pennsylvania, I mean, it's hard to imagine. But I've run some trail cameras in the past, and I've never had any of this caliber buck on there, but I've had a lot of 120, 130 bucks in there, and mature deer. Just for sure, the quality of the deer down there. I mean, because now even like all the does you see are good size, healthy looking animals. Where like when I first started hunting down there.
Yeah. Used to be spikes and just little does, and it's like
those like everywhere now.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm curious that 12 point. What did he end up weighing? Like, what would you estimate him at?
About 80 pounds in the pack.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, live weight. He was huge he looked huge in the camera, especially I'd have him standing next to another deer that was like a 2.5-year-old deer, and he was like twice his size, but it's hard to gauge how much they actually weigh or anything.
Just guessing from deer around here, he was 140 or 50 pound deer dressed. Right, Dales? We both were kind of in amazement when we saw him. When we walked up on him, and we're like, "Holy shit, that's a big buck!" Holy shit, that's a small body. It's kind of that was our impression, but
yeah, his body truly looked like a 2-year-old buck, but it was probably just so that he was run down from the rut and everything. But he didn't even seem to be a long deer either. That's what surprised me.
No, he looked short.
I'll tell you what, the deer
he looked like a 3-year-old maybe.
Yeah,
but
by the body, and we know that we're like, this doesn't match up with his horns, so he's probably an older deer. So we figured he was probably just run down. Living in the mountains and chasing does and just being, like you say, all these guys are hunting them, so he's bouncing all over the place probably. But the deer I killed a week later on Saturday was a much, much smaller antlered buck, and not just was the body bigger, but the head was bigger, and the hide was darker and thicker, and it was just like everything about that buck just screamed 4 or 5-year-old buck. And on this other one, on the 12 pointer, it was like he was skinny. He didn't seem to be very long. He did have a good hoof on him, but he had that lighter color hide that, I don't know, everything about him just kind of made him look like a little bit of a younger deer. But I know that that time of year, like, looks can be deceiving on that sort of thing. But yeah, I'll bet like Brian's. Yeah, so
around home too,
thing.
even with
I'll bet, like Brian
farmland.
said, that they get skinny like that.
Go ahead, Brian. It's your turn to talk.
No,
Brother
amazing
Dallas
around.
keeps talking over you, and now I talk over you.
We'll fight for it.
Yeah.
But we see 180. I think we have 180 pound deer in beginning of October, and then first week of deer season, even if they still look big, they weigh 140 to 60. And even our target buck this year, Dallas, what did he look like in the bucket when the neighbors killed him?
I don't know. I couldn't see him. He was up in the air, but
He didn't look like much,
Yeah.
But he'd been running too. So.
Yeah.
So as far as the backstory end of things goes, I think I'm kind of up to date. Was there anything else, Brian and Dallas, that you guys were interested in before we get into like your discussion of the actual how it all went down? No. Yeah.
No, I expected him to possibly have a farther home range than that, but I don't know if that's fairly standard up there for, a mile or two for them to kind of shift their home ranges, or if it's just pressure. If you would have stayed over there, if there wasn't pressure, you got to wonder that,
I think a lot of times, they do have a huge range because the food sources are usually spread out. There's a lot of dead woods, around there. You can go, sometimes on a fresh snow, you can go forever without finding a fresh track, at times.
But when you do, they're all there.
Yeah, you'll find clusters of them, and that cluster seems to move a lot. So you're like trying to hit a pinball machine, it's like going all over the place.
Yeah.
But this one, he stayed remarkably faithful to an area, and I think if the DCNR hadn't leveled his bedding area twice, I honestly think he would have stayed right there within a 30 to 50 acre zone, because I had over the period of 2 years hundreds of pictures of him in that small area, and there was only small windows when he would leave, but he spent 80% of his time in that one core area. And then, like I said, when I think the pressure got too bad in 2020 and he just totally moved, then
I think there's something to that with the clear cutting and all the pressure that the DCNR puts on the deer is probably helpful to them too in the end, because you were zeroing in on that deer and he got forced to move and go set somewhere else up. So it probably threw you off a lot more than it did him. Mm-hmm. And I think that happens a lot up in there, is that people get their spots where they're, they get used to hunting there and they have success for a couple of years and they start hanging stands and cameras, and all of a sudden they come in and clear cut an area. And I think it really throws people off, and it throws them for a loop, and it gives them, they have a hard time resituating and setting back up. I know I went to bow hunt that same spot when they first cut the logs down up there. I had hunted there the year before and had had a good day. So I was going to go back where all those, because there's all oaks up on that ridge there. And I went back in, I think it was 2017 or 18 when they cut it. And I went in there to bow hunt and found out that it was all clear cut. They were back in there hauling oak trees out of there. So I went, oh, I guess I'm not hunting here today, so I'll go somewhere else. But I do think that probably benefits the deer more than the hunters. I think that's, the deer can adjust way more easily to that.
Oh yeah, and there's so much that changes in the big woods from year to year, even as far as food sources. This year, there was really a hard drought up there, and a lot of the hollows, like I said, that were all lush and green, they were dead ferns, and it was horrible. A lot of the small little tributaries were all dried up, and it had those deer even more isolated in pockets, and a lot of the food sources were, I would usually find a lot of scrapes around, or, bedding areas. They were dead, and to go back to what you were saying, Dallas, I've killed a lot of buck up there, and I've never killed more than one in a spot. Every year I've had to jump from spot to spot because the factors are never the same. Yeah. Just when you think that you found that spot, like some guys, I go to my stand, this is my stand every year. It's not like that up there, it's totally different every year, and you just got to adapt to it. And roll with the punches.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Well, that was something that I noticed this year. I mean, we covered a ton of miles. I think I walked all 3 days and I put on about 30 miles. I know Dallas did too, and Brian covered probably close to that as well. And I didn't see shit for acorns. I didn't see rubs and scrapes like I normally do. So it's interesting hearing your take on that, because there just was not the sign everywhere that there has been in the past. And on the last day, in the area where Brian shot the buck, that creek in past years is it's just steady, swift moving water. And there was not a drop of water in that bottom. Like there was nothing. That creek bed, at least down where I came down the ridge, there was not an ounce of water in that creek. So was there water up by where you guys were, Brian, or?
Yeah,
Pretty sure.
There was. Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there was water.
Down at the bottom, there was literally zero water in that. So whether the water was just dissipating or what by the time it got down there, but one
should
thing
be more because that other creek was feeding it.
Yeah, two things I want to hit on there before we hit into the story is you said Ralph, you mentioned dead woods, and that's something that I just want to clarify what that means, because I know what you're talking about, and it's something that Steve Schurter talks about too, is like knowing when you're in an area that's just dead and don't waste your time. So, to you, what is that like when you're in the woods? What are you seeing that's telling you that this is just a dead area? Keep moving because there's nothing here. What are you looking for in that situation?
No ground cover. There's a lot of mature trees, no oak. There's nothing there for the deer to feed on or use as cover. A lot of times, a whole hillside will be dead. You just got to go above it or below it. But it really, I think a lot of people, hunters in general, I think they like to see too far. And from my experience hunting the big woods, you'll have better luck if you're hunting in thicker cover. If you can see 100 yards, that's almost too much, to have consistent success anyway, the way I hunt and all. But a lot of guys, they just like to see too much. And if you can see too much, the big buck's not going to be there.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I took from, Trigger needs more juice. One of the things I took from spending time with Steve when Dallas and I went down and did our workshop with him is that I've always fallen in love with finding buck rubs and scrapes in open areas. You're just like, oh my God, the deer are here. They're like running this. And that was something that Steve like really pointed out. He's like, that's all happening at night. Like that's not sign that's happening during the day. And when I made those adjustments this year, I found myself in the deer more than the past because I was getting away from that in the open, hardwoods, no cover, and lots of sign. That just was sign that was happening overnight. So I just want to point that out. I think that's a good learning point for people that do want to get into hunting some of the bigger wood situations, whether it be in PA, New York, anywhere across the country. It's pretty consistent the way that goes. And then the last thing, just to point out similarity between where you found where that buck was living and that buck that Dallas is talking about from 2017 that probably one of the biggest bucks that we've been on aside from Brian's was that deer was right at the bottom edge of the clear cut and the hardwoods towards the bottom where you had some hemlocks and some cover. So I don't think it's a coincidence that those big bucks are hanging in that environment. And I was talking to Jason Hettenbaugh, one of the guys that grew up in the same town as I did, and him and his dad shot a nice buck over in Allegheny this year. And that buck, they caught him on the bottom edge of a clear cut right in the hemlocks. That's where they got him. So just kind of starting to see some consistency there as far as like where to locate these bucks and where they're spending some of their time. So
I think a lot depends too on how areas are accessed by hunters. They're in Potter County where we hunt there. The road's on top of the ridge. So everybody's moving in from the top. The deer are going to the bottom. A lot of times you get over to the Allegheny National Forest, the roads are a lot of times in the bottoms and guys are walking up. So you'll find a lot of the bucks are up on the ridges and the rugged parts of the ridge. But yeah, they definitely like those lower thick spots where they can hide.
Yep. All right, Trigger in Dallas. You guys ready for the big finale here?
Do we get a drum roll?
Yeah. Should we start where we were standing? So this was an afternoon hunt, and we had lunch. We had hunted the morning. We had like a 5-mile hunt in the morning. It was a long hunt to get everybody in, set up, and then out. And we came out of that drive with several shots fired and no deer on the ground. So we were kind of bumming. It was the last day, and we had only shot Jim's buck, right? So just the one buck so far, and that was the first drive of our 3-day hunt. So we were kind of, after 2 years in a row where we shot 6 bucks, so we shot 12 bucks in 2 years in that general area. We were kind of bumming. We're like, what the hell? This is not happening, and we're just not seeing the opportunity, not seeing the deer. And so we ate lunch. We sat down on a pile of logs. We had our whole gang, 12 or 13 of us were eating lunch, and we break off, and the guys that were going to be doing the walking, we're walking from there, and the sitters were heading back around to set up and get ready for us. And we were coming around that area that was fenced in, that's no longer fenced in. And it was myself and a couple, and AJ and Jim and Danny. And Brian and Dallas. And we stopped, and we're about to where that fenced in area cuts back around to the east, and then it drops down into that hollow. And we all stopped, and we're all kind of trying to figure out the game plan. And we didn't really know at that point who was going to go where. And Brian and Dallas had this twinkle in their eye where the two of them hadn't really hunted yet together on this weekend. And they're like, what do you say, brother? What do you say we get down in here and make something happen? So we just let them go. And next thing we know, they're just freaking tail lights, and they're gone. And I'll just leave it there for you boys to let it rip.
All right. Well, I could talk strategy a little bit first.
Could you?
So the way we normally do these hunts is we kind of surround a big bowl or a draw or a run, where a stream will come up from a bottom run and up into towards the top, and we'll sort of just surround the area, and we'll hunt the side hills up towards the road, and we'll be trying to push the deer up. So we'll try to get them contained in that bowl, so to speak. And having the number of people we do and the experience we do, we kind of just know how to surround them, and you get them moving up out of there, and you can shoot them. Well, this was a little different because that whole side by the road was clear cut this year. So we were actually coming down this big side hill. We were just going to come down it into the bottom and try to push deer off of it. But then we were actually going to almost reset when we hit that stream at the bottom. We were going to follow the stream up to the north and then bring 2 or 3 other draws up towards the main forestry road and have guys up there. So this was actually kind of like a 2-part hunt, which we'll do sometimes, where we'll try to push one area, and then without bringing everybody back out to the road and resetting, we'll move and do it in another area. So we were just really on the first part of this.
Deer off that spot.
Yeah, we were hoping to knock them down and up to the north towards all our other guys. So I was the southernmost person, and Brian was the second one. So we kind of worked our way around the bottom edge of this clear cut, and Brian sort of dropped straight down this very steep side hill where we hunt all the time and have a lot of success there. And I was to the south of him. And as we're working down through there, I guess I got almost to the bottom to where I could see the creek on the bottom, and I could see the other side. And at that point, I jumped. I seen a couple of deer moving through towards Brian, and I got my gun up, and just 3-power scope, I could see about 200 yards away. I had an opening. I put my gun up, and I see a deer flash through there, and I could see a beam on his right side. That's all I could see was a beam. And I said, well, at 200 yards on 3-power scope, if I could see a beam, I know that's a good buck. And I said, there's another deer coming behind it. And it was the same thing. He flashed through that opening, and I could see a beam on the right side. So I said, well, same deal. It's like, man, there's 2 good bucks. And I said, at this point, I did my job. They're gone, but they are heading to the north, and that's where 10 of my buddies are to the north of me. So I said, I think fireworks are going to start to happen here pretty soon. So I'll let Trigger take over now.
Basically, I think I don't know, I was hurting a little bit. I maybe I got down to the bottom a minute or two after Dallas, but basically I got 60 yards from the bottom, and here comes 2 deer flying down through on the opposite side of the creek. You know, I'm on one side, they're coming down the other. So I basically,
with the creek.
Yep, they're running parallel with the creek, probably 60, 80 yards above the creek, not real high. And same thing as Dallas, they were about 150, 175 yards away, still coming down towards me. And I put the scope on one, and I could just see it was like a good 18-inch wide buck, and it was like safety off. I don't even know what the other buck was. I'm pretty sure I saw, if I had to guess, I saw a frame like that on both of them. But I just picked the lower deer. They were running kind of one above the other one. And I focused on the one that was a little bit lower because I just figured it was a touch closer. And I don't know. There wasn't really much rationale, you know, they were running. And so I just kind of focused on that one. And all I could really do was just pick an opening in the trees that I thought he was going to go through. And, you know, I waited for him to come in, shot, and I did that 4 times. And every time I felt pretty confident on my shot. But when I'm looking in that opening, it looks nice and clear to the hill on the other side. And then when the buck come in and I was, you know, you're already committed. He comes in, you squeeze the trigger, and you could just see there was too much like small stuff between me and him. And so I just kept racking, and they both kept running. And, you know, I didn't think I hit anything. And I waited, went over, looked. Well, actually, I gathered all my crap. All my crap was scattered out because I dropped it all when I seen those deer come running, and picked up all my empties. I couldn't see the deer anymore. They got behind a huge hemlock tree, and I could never see them again. So I picked all my crap up. That took a couple minutes, and I went real slow to the north and looked across once I got around that big hemlock tree, and there was a deer that just kind of scooted. I only seen him for five yards probably. Not even enough time to pick my gun up, and I didn't even see horns. It was probably only 125 yards away. I didn't even know what to think about it. All I could think was there was 2. I only saw 1, but I don't know. So I dropped down, went back up the other side, tried to pick out where I was shooting. And like the second running track I picked out, there was hair, some crap stuck to it, you know, just kind of sprayed up the hill. So I just waited for Dallas, and you know, I didn't want to go looking. I was pretty confident I didn't have a good shot because he didn't go down. But I think just being a little confused, like that when I got around that hemlock tree, there was a deer that scooted up through, and I really didn't get a good look at it. And to me, I didn't even hit him. So I didn't even put like 2 and 2 together until I seen the hair. I thought maybe it was the buck I shot. But anyways, it's been a long day, so I took my shoes off and stuff like that and pulled my socks off. My feet were wet. Waited for Dallas to come down, and you know, basically we looked at that hair and we went, all right, I guess he's hit. But Dallas tried to follow, you know, what'd you do? You
Yeah, so I'll just
followed
back
a
up a
couple running
second.
tracks. And
After you shot, so we had snow all this time, but after you shot, I got down to that creek and crossed, and down there it was sunny and the snow was all gone.
Right.
So I wanted to pick up these 2 tracks, and I wanted to see the size of the tree.
It was sunny down there at that moment?
Yeah.
Seriously? Because
it was been sunny.
It was snowing sideways down where I was. Did it snow on you guys up there?
Don't believe so.
Maybe after
No, that's
It
bizarre.
may have after the shot. I think it may have snowed a little bit, but it was the sun was out, and you could see that the sun had been out in that valley because the snow was all melted out of there.
That's wild.
Yeah, that was.
So I came down. I wanted to pick up the tracks to see if I could get an idea of where we had kicked the deer down out of. When I got down there was no snow, and the only thing I found was right where those two streams come together. That area was all just torn up with super fresh digging and feeding, and that is right where I saw those deer come out of. So either we kicked them off of that side hill where they were bedded, and it was just coincidence that they ran right through where all that fresh sign was, or at 1 o'clock in the afternoon in the middle of the day, those two bucks were just standing down there in the wide open feeding. I don't know which one it was. I wish I had snow so I could tell.
So Ralph,
what actually happened.
Here's my theory here, Ralph, is that I told these guys all weekend long, I said, we need to go hunt that area that they're actively clear cutting because nobody else is going to hunt that, and we're not finding bucks anywhere else. That's all I'm saying. You know, Slick Willie's Guide Service. I'm going to be starting that up. Go ahead, Dallas.
So at that point, as I was kind of trying to scout that out, Brian called me on the radio and said, "Hey, I think I missed, but or I think he might have said I think he might have said he missed, but then he said he found some hair. So I hurried up and got over there, and we found that hair. And so I got up to him, and he's sitting there with no boots on, and I said, well, I'll just walk ahead a little bit here. And I just climbed over one deadfall, and I said, hey, I made a mistake of being like, because I'm thinking these deer are, long gone. Even if one is hit, I'm thinking he's way up. So I'm like, hey, I found some blood, like a jackass. I'm excited because I'm thinking if I find one speck of blood, I'm going to be able to track this deer down and hound him until he's dead, So, I'm just excited beyond belief when I find one drop of blood. So as I said that, he's like, oh, okay, good. I'll put my boots on and catch up with you here in a second. And so I took a couple more steps forward and looked ahead of me, and 100 yards in front of me in these giant hemlock trees where it's all, it's shadowy. It's pretty dark in there. It's hard to see. I see something that looks like the ass of a deer facing me. And I'm like, no freaking way that's a deer's ass. And he had said that he saw a deer there still. So I pulled my gun up, and I see the tail and the ass of a deer and some giant tines sticking up. And I'm like, holy crap, that's him. So he's just standing there, and I pull the gun up, and I get the crosshairs up at him, and he's just like a ghost. He's gone. He didn't run. He didn't fall. I don't know what happened. I brought the crosshairs up, and that deer was gone there. And I'm certain I saw it, and we know because he was still there. But so at this point, now I turn around. I'm like, I start pointing at him to get down in the creek down below, because it's like that deer is there. So we regrouped for a second and got him down below. So now we know we're onto a deer that's hurt and he's not moving anywhere, So go ahead, Brian, if you want to add anything there.
No, that's basically, yeah. I threw my shit back on as quick as I could. I couldn't believe he was just standing there, and I'm just waiting for you to shoot, and you started pointing down, so I ran down to the creek, and we both were just Elmer fudding it, kind of just picking our way towards him. We were only 100 yards away from her or whatever, but like for me, there's some like just small growth going up on the bank by the creek, and then it's those huge dark hemlocks. So I'm just trying to watch him there. I want to make sure he doesn't come across the creek, and I'm kind of keeping an eye on what Dallas is doing, just so I can figure out what's going on, and I finally picked him. He was just like barely moving in those hemlocks. And by the time I got the gun up, he got through my one little opening. So I'm just holding the gun up there, waiting for him to appear again. And Dallas
Slouch.
let one rip. And yeah, that was it. So it was a team effort. Even if Dallas didn't shoot him in the end, it was, obviously it's a team effort, but so I hit him good enough where he didn't want to go anywhere. That's about it, and when I got up there, Dallas was standing about 5-10 yards away from him, just kind of looking. Wasn't touching him, wasn't doing anything. It was a pretty good feeling. And I told him I thought it was a 10, but every time I pulled the trigger, I could just see, I don't know, 2 or 3 times. You don't really know. And we've all done it. Oh, it was a big ass buck, and you get up there and you're like, all right, yeah, it's a buck. And when they're running and broadside, you can see tines, you don't know if you're picking the tines up from the other side or not. So I was just guessing he was a 10 point. We don't see many 10 points. How many 10 points do we see, Dallas?
I ended up killing one a week later, but not very often. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Almost every buck I've ever killed has been an 8-pointer.
Right.
Some big, some not so big.
What was it? So he goes, holy shit, it is a 10 point. And I see 3 like big times in a row, and I'm like, fuck you, it's a 12 pointer. Holy shit. So it was just a pretty cool moment. And all them other guys, we wanted them to actually do the push. And we had them, we just told them to keep going. They knew we were shooting and we had something going on. So we let some hoots.
Yeah, to fill Ralph in. So the way it works is so Brian's nickname is Trigger. So it's Brian shooting if there's at least 3 to 5 shots within a 3-second window. So this is something that Brian is very well known for, and he's very talented at his abilities to shoot, re-rack. It's like something you've never seen. So AJ and we're down probably a mile north of them, and then we hear all these shots ringing off, and it's like how the sound kind of like echoes in there, and you're like, I don't know where this is, and it's like no doubt with the how quickly those shots were going off. It's like, that's Brian and Dallas. Don't know which one, because Dallas could certainly do the same, but it's those guys. And we're just waiting and waiting and waiting. And then we hear that one single shot, and then there's just this thing that we do. We call it the Uncle Rick, the Ric Flair scream that Dallas patented years ago. And just in the mountains, there's just nothing better than when you hear just somebody shoot a gun, and then you have a slight pause, and then just the loudest scream you've ever heard, just echoing through the mountains. And as soon as we heard that, we were a long ways away, and you just hear this scream just echoing through the mountains. It's like, well, that's got to be a good sign about something happening. And then it was probably 20 minutes later or so, we heard over the radio that there was a giant Potter County buck on the ground, and we all knew. None of us knew what it looked like. Obviously, we had no cell service. You couldn't communicate other than the radio and relaying it to each other, but it was super exciting to hear. And we were all just like anxiously waiting. We do this whole drive, and honestly, none of us gave a shit about the drive because we knew that they had a huge buck on the ground. So like, we all take so much pride in seeing somebody in our group shoot a deer, because we all work so hard for it. So, we all, like, I know AJ and I personally were like wanting so badly to go down there and help them, but we have no idea where they are. So it's like, do you go down there? Do you not go down there? So we're all just like lined up at the top of that ridge, just waiting. We like finished the drive like an hour and a half quicker than we should have. And we just like rushed back to the trucks and cracked some beers and just ready to celebrate. So it was awesome when those two finally came up out of the bottom with that rack in their hands. We were fired up to see that thing. It was awesome. It was awesome.
Yeah. Okay. DJ and AJ kept radioing me because they were the only ones that really had contact with us, and they kept asking if we needed any help or what they wanted or what we wanted them to do or whatever. And and I just kept telling them, no, just hunt. I said, we don't need any help. It was 1 o'clock, 1:30 in the afternoon. I mean, we had all day. Me and Brian can get a deer out. And honestly, we wanted to take some time and soak it in and just spend the time together too. I mean, we wanted you guys, it was the last day, it was the last afternoon. We did not want to interrupt your hunt, even though I know you guys would have liked to been there, but we wanted you to keep hunting, and we were hoping, and we had that other buck that was running that way. So we're like, hey, you guys, there's another big buck down in, who knows where that deer went. We never saw him, but we wanted you to keep getting after it. And then I think it took me a little while. I think even after we first killed the deer, like me and Brian are high-fiving and hooting and hollering and celebrating. And at some point, I think it set in on both of us that it's like, the two of us here, it's like, what are the chances that of all the times that we've done this and all the fun we've had and all the deer we've killed here and stuff, it's like we finally had a plan come together where we killed this giant buck, and out of this big group, there's just the two brothers standing there in the bottom of this ravine with this buck. We're standing over it, and it's like the situation couldn't have been more perfect in terms of like, you guys are off hunting, doing your own thing, having a good time, and me and him are just like, I think I really enjoyed the moment and the whole afternoon, honestly. Yeah.
Take another sip.
Yeah, we had a couple sips of Jim Beam honey, and honestly, that's probably the only time I've ever been emotional with a deer. Never in my life, not for any other reason than like that whole situation was just so overwhelming that the last thing I wanted was for a couple of you guys to come down in there and be like, hey, you need some help or whatever. It's like, no, we got this.
Yeah,
we'll be fine. And like I said, we had all day to do it. We had just, I don't know. I've never enjoyed an afternoon of not hunting as much as that one. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I wish my brother was man enough to go to Pennsylvania and we could have memories like that.
Yeah.
He's a Sally though. Anyway.
It's just so strange how it all worked out.
Yeah.
It's just amazing how it all worked out that way.
Yep.
Not only to kill the deer, but just the way the two of us were there with it. And it, when we were up top, he said he was hurting. His knee hurt so bad that he should have been a sitter. And I tried to get him to sit and he wouldn't. He's like, I'll be fine. I'll deal with it. So, and then when we decided that me and him were going together, we're walking on flat ground still. We hadn't even started dropping down. And I turned around and looked at him and he's almost in tears. His knee hurts so bad. And I said to him, I should have just had you go and sit. And he's like, nah, I'll be fine. And he gimps his way down to the, and I said, I'm like, oh, I'll take the farther position where I have to go a little farther. And I said, you can just work your way down this thing really slowly. It's just everything about it, the way it worked out. It was just surreal the way everything came together there.
Yeah. But to walk up on something like that, I mean, that was pretty cool. And,
yeah.
We high-fived and hooted and celebrated a little bit. And then we just kind of stood there and just kind of looked at him, just like, I don't know. Do you even we just kind of looked at him. And,
yeah, I've been saying for years that I think we could get a deer like that out of here because we know the capability is there. We've seen the pictures, we've seen the sign, we've seen, we've had sightings of some big deer there. So I figured eventually that was going to happen. It was a matter of when, I guess, and how or where. So it was satisfying to have it all come together the way it did. It was very,
yep.
It felt like very much something that we've been working for a long time, hunting, doing this hunt.
No doubt. And we would take a buck like that, one buck out of a weekend like that over six decent bucks. We would take one good buck like that every year if we had the opportunity at him. So, on the strategy point, I think it's something that we covered quite a bit last year when we covered our PA hunt series, but this year, we had a similar size group and we had a bunch of new guys, but I feel like everything went pretty smooth. And one of the big factors was that we used printouts of Dallas printed out a bunch of, we knew the areas of the drives we were going to be doing. And what we do is it's very coordinated. So everybody knows when we go to start a drive, everybody knows where they should be sitting, where they should be walking. And, so what we've been doing is printing aerial topo maps off of the internet, take a topo map, print it out, and then we'll have several copies of each drive, but then we draw it out. Everybody knows which X they are or which line they are to walk, and takes a picture on their cell phone. And I think that was a game changer this year because the guys, for the most part, we had a couple situations where Peter Michael Hainiski was in the wrong spot, but that's just because he just, he's Polish and he can't help it. But for the most part, I mean, even the new guys did a great job. Like they were able to read the maps and understand where they were supposed to go and how they were supposed to get there. And it was there's a lot of strategy that goes into these hunts, and it's not a coincidence, I don't think, that we've been having the success we have, especially the last 3 years, shooting mature bucks and, seeing activity on just about every single drive we do.
Yeah. Our strategy evolves every year. But that's definitely the big thing is technology. I mean, honestly, GPS units, and then now having your phone be a GPS, and you can download the offline maps, and now the printing out the maps with the sort of the game plan on them and have everyone work together. It's just a matter of executing. We actually have a plan to execute, and I will say that I think we were all a little frustrated by the third morning there. It had been a kind of a tough time compared to what we've been used to the last couple of years. I know you were feeling it a little bit, Billy.
Yeah, I was frustrated. I had one opportunity in 3 days and covered 30 miles. I wasn't even seeing deer. Like I was getting frustrated. But the one thing, and kind of turn it back around to you, Ralph, like you were in there throughout the season. I've never seen boot tracks in places where I was seeing boot tracks. Like there was people, there was boot tracks in areas I just was not expecting. So that was something I was curious from your end of things. Like, did you seem to think that there was more hunting activity up in there this year? And was that simply a COVID factor, or was that the factor that there was, more days to hunt? You guys had a couple Sundays and a longer archery season.
It was definitely more people. Yeah, I think it was the COVID. I had talked to a couple forest rangers who said that all year was nuts up there on the forest land. Very high use, way more hunters than I've seen in previous years. Like you, I was seeing tracks way back in where I didn't expect, I would think, okay, I got to go find somewhere where nobody's been. And I'd go back in there and there'd be, tracks there. Yeah. So, it was a weird year for that. And the deer were really spotty. And I don't think there were quite as many this year. I know overall on my trail cameras, I saw fewer buck, but I didn't go back in as far as I usually do. So kind of wonder if, they all kind of moved back in a little bit because of the extra traffic all summer and fall.
Mm-hmm. And then our particular area, as you pointed out before, people were hunting that particular buck as well. So there was some added pressure right in the radius, in the area that we're normally hunting. So, we come into this not having a clue about this deer, and we're partly wondering why so many people are in there hunting. Well, that's one of the reasons. And I think another thing too is that there was that fresh snow that came the couple days before we went there, like Tuesday, Wednesday, there was, 6 inches of fresh snow. And I think that emboldens guys to get out and walk more. So like a lot of where I was seeing the tracks were on the tops just below the clear cut. So a lot of people you could see it was a lot of times there's probably just one or two people just still hunting their way around the edges of the clear cuts where they could walk quietly and see a long ways in that snow. So I think number one, if we're hunting without snow, you just don't see those boot tracks. So you're back in 3-4 miles, just assuming, well, nobody's been here, but maybe they have, and you just don't see their tracks. Or the reason they're back there is because they have that snow, and that enables people to just go and hunt these areas, because you can do it with 1 or 2 people and just still hunt quietly and not be kicking deer everywhere. You could see better, you could see the tracks, just all sorts of advantages that come with that fresh snow. So I think that's part of what happened too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. The one of the things that Brian picked up on from the comments on Facebook there, and that stream back and forth with everybody commenting on that buck, was that, somebody was surprised that we shot that deer in the bottom. And reflecting on a lot of the deer that we've shot over the last few years down there, a lot of those bucks end up getting shot. The pushers, the walkers down in the bottoms are the ones that are having the opportunity to get shots at those deer a lot of times before they ever get to the sitters. So, anybody who's trying to, if you're doing any sort of still hunting or, working as a team with someone, having somebody down towards the bottom in a lot of these drainages in these hollows, the bottom third is typically, in most of these situations, the bottom third is fairly open. But if you get those deer moving back and forth, they're gonna move in that bottom, and some of that's your best shooting in the whole area. So definitely encourage anyone who's trying to hunt any of those bigger areas, and you're trying to do some sort of a coordinated hunt with a group of people, is that you want to make sure you've got somebody, in an area. We typically have somebody on each side of the bottom to get deer coming across, back up and down on each side. And I mean, both the bucks that I've shot the last couple of years have been right in the bottom. This past year I didn't shoot one, but the 2 years prior I did, and they were both the first drives of our hunt, and I was the most bottomest guy and had opportunities right off the bat. So the bottoms can be good. Don't be intimidated about getting down there. It is intimidating when you have to drop 700 feet in elevation to get to it, but if you got a backpack and a knife and a fork and some matches, like Trigger says, you can either eat your way out or you can throw them on your back and carry them out. Yeah. Brian,
and we're talking about bottoms too, where there's not an access point. So like the second morning we went to that spot where me and Rob came in through the bottom, and there was camp and a road down there, and there was a highway of people walking back and forth through that bottom. So you have to get into isolated bottoms, but that's not hard to do. Obviously, most of the spots that we hunt, they are that way.
Yeah. Trigger, we don't have your audio. I don't know what happened. Was there anything from that story, Ralph? Any questions you got as it pertains to the buck and how it all?
No, it's kind of that's how I've imagined it.
Yeah.
I think I know exactly where you're talking about, because I've never been in that spot exactly, but I have seen it on the map, and it always looked appealing, and I always thought probably coming from there somewhere, but I spent a lot of time on the other side in that bottom, because that's where I had so many photos of them, even right in the first part of rifle season. But they move.
They do.
So you said you heard the shots, right?
Yes.
Where were you?
I was up close to the where would I have been when that was? I was parked down at the other side, just down
at the other end of the.
Yeah, it'll probably just
area.
been right down in there. Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Sorry.
So I just wanted to ask Ralph a few questions. And first of all, I want to say thank you for sharing the pictures and the background on this buck. I mean, it means a lot to us to see some of the background in the pictures of this deer, but also as a fellow hunter for you to to share your experience with us and to be forthcoming about it and be sportsmanlike about it in a way that I don't blame you if you're feeling a little sour when you saw that picture or anything, but I don't know. I wanted to get your thoughts a little bit from your side of this story. Every buck like this I guess a lot of them don't have an ending to the story, because a lot of times they just disappear off the map and you just wonder what happens to them, right? You don't know if they got killed or if they died of old age or what happened to them. But I guess, can we get a little bit of your perspective on this whole thing?
Well, after I finally dragged myself out of bed after crying for 3 days. Well, I spent a lot of time thinking and obsessing about that deer, and every big buck is going to teach you something. And I think, mostly what I learned about myself in the process is that, I hunted for him right up until the end, until I couldn't hunt for him anymore. And a lot of people were saying I was stupid for doing that, because I knew where some other bucks were, and I felt really confident that I could have gone in there and got one. But I wanted one particular deer. And, anytime you invest so much of yourself into that, there's going to be a little bit of empty feeling when they're gone. But to hear you guys tell your story of how you got him, even though you didn't have the history that I had, just to know how much it means to you makes me feel complete with the story.
That's
and good. Congratulations to you guys. I mean, it's awesome that, the brothers were together to do it. And, it was meant to be. Just, yeah, that's all I can say is congratulations, and you guys deserve it, man.
Oh, thank you.
I think we know how you feel too.
Yeah.
We had a target buck last year and this year that the three of us, so we have a family farm right, within a few miles of where we all live. Me and Dale grew up on the farm. Billy married our cousin that, her dad and our dad own the farm. So that's where we do a lot of our hunting around here in New York. And we had a good buck last year that we had pictures of, some pretty good pictures. We didn't see him last year though, right?
No.
I'm not even. But anyways, we had pictures of him throughout season. We obsessed about him into February till he dropped the horns. The neighbor found the horns. First, as soon as the horn growth got good this year, we go, that's him. We had him since beginning of June. We knew it was him, or somewhere in June. And we watched him grow, and he didn't really grow much, but he was about 140-inch buck. Just a
8-pointer.
Nice 8-point, good, heavy, nice 5.5-year-old deer, something that we don't really necessarily think about score and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, we all want to shoot a big buck, but if we shoot a 4-year-old buck that's 115 or 20 inches, I mean, that's awesome. And we all wouldn't hesitate. But so we obsessed about him. We hunted him when we could, but we really tried to pick the good times. We didn't want to, we really watched the wind. So we didn't overhunt the areas. We were getting pictures of them. We got pictures of them a lot through October. I actually saw them the first and second Sunday of bow season out in fields. And, that was pretty cool. And that's what we were looking for. That was the only shooter buck we had on our property this year, which is odd. And we had him, what was it? An hour after dark the night before opening day of gun in our food plot. And then again, we had him twice that night. Friday night, Saturday's the opener here. Saturday, me, Dallas, my wife, we're on the farm hunting, and there's a lot of shooting going on to the south. put a few 5-shot bursts, and we're sitting the whole day. We're waiting for that deer, and we get a text from the neighbor that Dallas gets a text from the neighbor. Oh, they got a monster, whatever, And it's like, nah. And then an hour later, that neighbor, and that wasn't the one who shot it, texted Dallas a picture. He sends it to us. We're like, I don't know. He's like in a bucket tractor. And me and Dallas left at noon or 1. We drove over to the neighbor, saw it. It was him. We cried a little bit. We had a beer, and we both said, now where are we going to hunt? And it was pretty tough. And killing that buck in PA, and then hearing, Billy and Dallas are showing me the Facebook back and forth, and it's like, we're feeling pretty good about killing that buck, and we're talking about it. I'm like, man, I think I know how he feels, and I'm not saying I feel bad, but I can definitely understand what you feel. We dealt with it here, and it was tough.
I think when you really set your sights on a deer, and you spend so much time after it, you almost feel like, where's my reward? Right. Man, I earned this one. Like, just give me one, And it's just, hey, it's hunting. It's, in this case, it's public land, and not only that, it's the big woods. And no matter what, I mean, the deer there mean way more to me than I could ever explain. Just having the opportunity to hunt for them, and like I said, to see you guys, how you celebrated the hunt, how you feel about it, and to hear you talk about it, it's a beautiful thing. I can tell that you love it as much as I do. So how could I ever, feel bad about it? I mean, you guys got them and you're celebrating them. That's all that matters.
Dude,
never gonna stop.
No. And this conversation is so awesome on so many levels, because in this day and age, when you got, everyone in the hunting industry, in the hunting world, the hunting life that we all have, there's so much, people backstabbing each other and hating on other people for their success. And to have, it really like centers your gravity. This year, just with us on the phone here, we had a buck that at our camp that we were after for years that somebody else shot, not, somebody that we know, but somebody else shot. Your situation, Ralph, our situation on the farm. And it's like, it really makes you step back and realize like what this is all about. And it's not about, the deer, the trophy, whether you got it or somebody else got it. It's about people having experiences and creating memories with whoever it is that they're with. And if we can get more people to understand that that's what this all should be about, Brian will get that opportunity. It was Brian's turn. That all happened just right for Brian. And he's appreciative of that. There's certainly people out there that are like, probably would say, well, F Ralph, whatever. I don't care about his feelings. But it's like, it's important to acknowledge and to show appreciation to other people who have put that time and effort into something, regardless of what it is, and it's a special thing. It's how the hell how'd you even find out about us shooting that deer? How'd you even come across it?
Steve Schurter texted me.
Steve did. We were wondering if Steve was involved. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. He said, I can't remember the exact, sorry to tell you this, but that 12 point you were after, he's dead.
Yeah. And how small of a world is that when you think about it? Like literally Dallas and I met Steve last spring
in May.
In May,
we just contacted Steve in May. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's just hilarious. Like, it's just such a small world. And that's what every single time something happens like this, I just love every second of it. Cause it's just this community. Yeah. It's just awesome. And regardless of whether we've got 20 people listen to this or we've got 100,000 people listen to this, it's like creating relationships with people like you, sharing stories, creating all these memories. It's like, that's the stuff that I'm going to remember from all of this. It's fantastic. This season was awesome in so many ways, and we can walk away with this stuff like that. So it's good stuff.
It was pretty neat seeing the trail camera pictures and stuff like that, and just reading a little bit, what you wrote about them and stuff like that. Kind of made it not that it didn't mean enough already, but that was pretty neat.
Good. I'm glad.
So,
Did you want to show him your prize there, Trigger?
yeah, I thought maybe I would let you see him one more time.
Awesome.
But, he's just kind of my, I don't know. I've had him in a few different spots around the shop. He's my centerpiece on the bar right now.
Yeah.
But I don't really know where to hang him, but
nice.
Just put him
who
on.
Knows if we'll ever kill a buck like that again?
Put him on the
I don't
grill.
even know what you call that.
Put him on the grill.
Did
To
he have that
ram.
last year?
No, not that drastic. His rack kind of came angled almost down like that. The same frame, but that droop on the right, it wasn't that pronounced.
Because that's pretty wild. I never seen anything quite like that before.
Yeah.
His whole beam actually drops if you look.
Yeah.
Compared to the other side, and then it just takes a weird turn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Would have never thought we were walking up on that. But
it's awesome.
Yeah, his right side was buried in the leaves. He kind of dropped in a hole. And when I walked up on him, he was taking his last breaths, and I didn't want to get too close to him before Brian came up. I certainly didn't want to have to throw another 708 round through him, He was you could tell he was just about done. He wasn't going anywhere. And but he was hiding all that extra stuff on the right side. So I didn't know if he was a 9 or a 10 pointer. And Brian comes walking up and he grabs a hold of him. He goes, "He's a 12." So, he was kind of hiding that right till the last second there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's funny because, like I said, every buck we shoot, it's an 8. Yeah, we've shot a lot of 7s, a lot of big 7s. I don't know. I don't even know if I've shot a 9 pointer. So it's like I got a couple 10s, but wait a minute. Why is there's 3 big tines and another one? Holy shit! That's odd.
Brian, show Ralph your wall right above your desk. Show him your muley. Well, there's a few other things up there.
Oh wow, cool. Very
So
nice.
That muley, that was our first trip to Colorado together. mule deer hunting, and what'd that score, Brian?
186.
Yeah, it's just
so
freaking giant. Yeah. So I'd like to take some credit. All the larger bucks on the wall again are in Brian's life since I came into it. So again, people keep your eyes peeled for Slick Willie's Great American Whitetail Adventures guide service coming out this fall.
It doesn't hurt to hunt near Slick Willie or the Dallas because good things happen.
That's right.
And generally, when we're in the similar area, pretty good success. So.
Yep. So Ralph, as we kind of start wrapping this up, I'm just kind of curious. So do you have a group that you hunt with? You got family, or you kind of solo
no,
ranger up
solo. There? Yeah, just by myself. Once in a while. This year was the first year that somebody actually came up and hunted with me for just one day or 2 days, and that was an archery season. But usually it's just by myself.
Nice. So you said you got a camp fairly close there.
Yep, right down in Prouty.
Okay, yeah. So you have enough room for like 17 guys next year, or what do you got?
Bring it on in.
Yeah. So we stay really close to there. Actually, where the house. I don't know. I could send you the address of where it is, but we drive right by where you are to get to the house that we've been renting the last few years. But we just rented a house this year that I think we already booked it again for next year. So we'll be down there. We'll have to hook up. There's no excuse
awesome.
why we couldn't get you in there to hunt with us for a few days. That'd be fun.
That would be fun. Yeah, that would.
Yeah.
Do you run into any other groups like our size up in there? Do you see anybody else compared to us, or pretty much just the Amish?
There is one. Trying to think. There's one camp that was hunting in that same area for that 12 point quite a bit. They were all like in their early 20s. There was probably 5 or 6 of them, but they didn't hunt as a group. They kind of, each went separate ways, it seemed. But other than that, I mean, you see a lot of guys hunting pairs, stuff, but no big driving going on. And that was always one of the things that, I thought would be super effective, because all of first week, usually, I mean, and obviously I wasn't up there first week this year because of COVID. And I've hunted a couple first weeks where you didn't hear a single shot.
No shit.
First day of rifle season, I'm pretty sure, mine was the only shot at like 4 p.m. It's just, there have been some really quiet days. Just not a lot of people moving them around,
Not when we're in town.
Yeah. But they get into those cuts and they hunker down, and nobody goes down in there. Nobody wants to go way back in and get them moving. So, if you're hunting solo like myself, you don't, your odds, you gotta get lucky, for something like that. But yeah, it'd be great to hook up with you guys and, at least share some stories and have some fun.
Yeah,
sure.
That could be arranged.
So when you shoot something, I got one question. When you shoot something down there, what are you going to do with it? And what is the normal person that hunts in a woods like that? What do they do with it? We see people dragging them out all the time.
No,
and we used to drag them out.
Yeah, I don't drag it. I skin and quarter it. I those forested roads. I used to. A lot of times they won't open those, during rifle season. Only select ones. The ones that I usually hunt back are never open until this year. But I was riding my bike, 4 or 5 miles back in, and if I got one, I skinned and quartered it. And, usually took 2 trips to get them out, but I ain't dragging them that far.
No.
Yeah, I mean, people look at you like you're like, why are you doing that? Just drag them. They always tell me drag them down the mountain until you get to the First Fork Valley. But then how do you get back up there? And once you're up on the ridge again, you got to hike all the way back in there to get your stuff. But it's just so much easier to skin and quarter. I like you. I carry a knife. I carry some game pouch, game bags, and chop them up, get them all packed away, and so much easier on your back and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I think it's something that slowly is creeping into the Eastern hunting lifestyle, but it's just still amazing. But you know what? I hope that a lot of people don't do it, because that allows us to have the opportunity to go to places where other people don't. So if they find out how,
it keeps a lot of people out of the. That's one of the first things people have told me. Like, well, how in the heck do you get them out? I'm not going back in there. I'm not dragging a deer 3 miles or whatever. Okay, that's fine. Don't.
Yeah, we will. Don't
Thank
worry
you.
about it.
Yeah.
We have 17 guys to carry 1 deer out. We should be fine.
Yeah, we don't even quit hunting when we kill a deer. We just keep going.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, 2 years ago, what was it, Dallas? Billy, was it 2 years ago you killed the deer on the first drive?
Mm-hmm.
And then Dallas killed, what did we hunt? How long did you hunt before you killed the deer, Dallas? With that meat?
It was. It was that
I
next
was
drive.
3 miles though away from where I had packed out Billy's deer, and I still had a quarter in my backpack. So yeah, I killed my biggest Pennsylvania buck with a quarter of one of Billy's bucks on in my backpack. So that right there is efficiency, I think.
So I want to say one more thing, that Ralph, I'm sure you understand how big the country is, but how, we get 2 hunts in a day average, right?
2 to 3, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're pushing to get 3.
Right.
I don't think people realize how big it is.
It's huge.
The area we're pushing.
Yeah, it's when you get down in there, and that was I'm fairly familiar and comfortable with hunting the hills from being over in the Finger Lakes. That's something that's for Brian and Dallas growing up on farmland. You've done your Western hunts and gone to PA, but for me, the shocker was how deep those hollows are. You're starting up on top and you don't realize how far down they go. And everybody who we've brought with us the first year, guys, it is fantastic because they always overdress. They always carry too much stuff. And then they get to the bottom of these and they're like, well, where do we go? And it's like, well, you're going to go up there. And
oh my,
we have hills named after guys like Bitch and Brad's Mountain. We've got a hill named after Brad. We probably could name a whole bunch of hills after Brad, and but it's fun. Like that's the fun part about getting down there is you get to stretch your legs out, and you can do the same thing here in New York. There's great opportunities all over the Northeast to get into some of those big woods environments and do stuff like this. So it's quickly become one of my favorite styles of hunting, especially once you get into the latter part of gun season where you got snow on the ground, is get together with a group of people and do some coordinated, still hunts or drives. And I highly recommend it. Anybody that's out there that's looking to get into it, it can be an extremely effective way to hunt once you get into the later part of the season. For sure. You all done, Trigger? He just turned his camera off and he must be ready for bed.
Yeah, and you don't need the size of group that we have now. I mean, we did this trip for years with 3, 4, 5, 6 guys. I mean, you could be effective that way too. It's just, maybe less effective than our big group, but at the same time, our big group brings its own logistical challenges because you have to set all those people up and coordinate all those people too. But just like I say, that our main strategy in those hills is just to surround an area. Just pick a bowl or a ravine on the map and just surround it and just hunt it. And when you say a drive, doesn't mean you have to try to chase every deer out of there. You could just go in and try to coordinate a still hunt together, depending on what the conditions are or how much time you have or where you want to go. So it's just it's such a fun area to hunt. I've been doing it. The first time I went down there is about 20 years ago. So can't wait to do it every year.
Amen to that. Ralph, why don't you close us out here? You got anything in closing from the discussion?
I just appreciate you guys having me on to talk a little bit about big woods and big bucks.
Yeah. Why don't you give a quick plug to where everybody can find your stuff, your books, your writing, your website, all that?
Sure. The website is firstforkpublications.com, and I have a blog on there called the Big Woods Blog, and I just came out with a book last summer called Hunting Mountain Whitetails.
Awesome. We'll have to check that out ourselves. I've perused your website a little bit and been following along. You post up your articles and that on Facebook as well, and been keeping up with some of that material there too. So it's great to hook up with you. Great to meet you, and hopefully we can do some more in the future with you.
Sounds great, guys.
So
thanks,
right. Ralph.
Thank
Ralph.
you.
Take it easy.
Have a good one.
Sorry we shot your buck. See ya. See ya. Feed him.